All right, well, it's 1 after 1, so I'm going to get us started. Start off with some introductions. Hey, all, my name is Mike Ciaramella. I'm the Seafood Safety and Technology Specialist with New York Sea Grant and Cornell University. I am the chair of the Community Engagement Work Group with the Seafood HACCP Alliance, and you're going to learn a little bit more about what that group is and what these work groups are all about in a minute. But ultimately, we're here today to provide some updates and information on the Seafood HACCP Alliance and the recent reorganization and restructuring of that alliance. For those who have been around a little bit, you may recall that the Alliance used to have what we call this steering committee with various representatives from sectors, academics, industry, all working towards maintaining, updating, and developing resources for the Alliance. And over the past few years, the Alliance and the Executive Committee has spent some time thinking about how to enhance the Alliance and create a more engaged community of seafood professionals across the country as well as internationally. And so we're here today to provide that update on kind of what we've done in terms of restructuring. And here you can see, we've got our flow diagram kind of outlining how we've restructured the Seafood HACCP Alliance. We still have that executive committee at the top that's working on, overseeing the efforts throughout the day, but it's broken down into committees and work groups as well. And those committees and work groups kind of play a different role when it comes to moving the Alliance and the Alliance efforts forward. And I'm going to walk through this flow diagram and break down each component of it for you. And then after I've done that, I'm going to ask our various chairs for the different committees and work groups to join me and give a little introduction to themselves as well as the work group and or committee that they are chair of. So we'll start off at the top. We've got our executive committee, which meets quarterly. The executive committee ultimately is spearheading the coordination of training and curriculum development efforts, as well as maintenance of existing curriculum. The executive committee members also serve as chairs for all of the various work groups and committees that you saw on that flow diagram. You'll also see up here, we have the Seafood HACCP Alliance Director, or this is the Executive Director for the Alliance. Currently, that is a vacant position. That will be a paid or compensated position. And that individual is really going to be charged with helping ensure that the Alliance is moving forward effectively and efficiently. And so be on the lookout for that call for applicants for that Executive Director position and the requirements of that. Under the Executive Committee, there are 3 other committees. These committees are made up of a chair, which is a member of the executive committee, as well as all of the chairs of the work groups under that committee, right? So typically what we see is the committees are made up of largely members from the executive committee, which is different from our work groups, right? And I'll go into a little bit more detail of what those committees are, or the chairs will go into a detail on what those committees are in a little bit. But again, committees and the difference between a committee and a work group, committees are made up of largely members of the executive committee, whereas the work groups are open up to our seafood community. And our seafood community are all of you, are all the trained Alliance instructors, as well as agency and organizations with a vested interest in Seafood HACCP, seafood safety, and the trainings and resources that the Alliance produces and maintains. So those work groups all have a chair. That chair is from the executive committee, but other than that, it is made up of volunteers from our seafood community, right? So you might have seen a little while back, there was a call for requesting volunteers and their interest in participating in these work groups. And based on those applications from our seafood community, we've filled out each of these work groups and are starting to move forward with development of resources, maintenance of resources, new curriculums, policies, work groups, and you're going to hear all about what each of those individual groups are charged with doing as our chairs come and update us a little bit later. But I'll break down them a little bit further for you. So we also, under our training materials and course development committee, we have 2 kind of categories of work groups that exist within that. The first would be our materials work group. These are all work groups that are focused on updating and maintaining training resources and materials. So including our editorial work group, which is formerly the Blue Book work group, our models work group, presentations and translations. We also have our course development work groups, which are more focused on the development and maintenance of new trainings and curriculums, right? So segment 1 update aquaculture training, importer training, and sanitation trainings. Again, some of these might be new to you, but you'll hear a little bit more about them in a minute as our chairs come and join us to share what they're working on. The last kind of group are the work groups under the policy committee. These work groups are really focused on training policies and procedures, right? So maintaining the Alliance training protocol, quality, which would be looking at course audits to ensure that the training curriculum are being met and abided by our trainers. And then lastly, communication, and that's our community engagement work group. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the chair of that work group. So when we get to that particular one, I'll share a little bit more about our goals and mission as a community engagement work group. But with that, I want to start to open it up, invite our chairs to join me in introducing themselves as well as their committee. The first one up, we have our Training Materials and Course Development Committee. Remember, this is a committee that is largely made up of chairs from our other work groups, all from the executive committee. And Christina is our chair for this one, but I'll check. Is Christina with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Christina, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, so I am technically chair of this committee. This committee is originally intended to have the new Seafood HACCP Alliance director be the chair, so I'm just a placeholder right now. As it says here, the purpose of this committee is to basically approve the training materials created for the Seafood HACCP Alliance. And so the way I see this committee functioning is as the work groups produce materials and develop them, they'll be checking in. The committee chairs will be checking in into this committee, kind of updating the eventual Seafood HACCP director with what is being proposed and what they're working on. And so we'll begin to meet quarterly since our committee just got formed, and I know they're just beginning to develop and do things. You know, we haven't met yet, but we'll start meeting quarterly to kind of just keep up to date. It's a way to keep the director, at least the way I see it, the director up to date as to what's functioning and what's not functioning with committees.
Great, thanks, Christina. All right, so we'll move on next to our next committee, which is our policy. Ooh, I skipped one, didn't I? Our Train the Trainer committee, and that chair for that is Doris Hicks. Doris, you want to take the screen?
Okay, there we go. I am the lead for the Train the Trainer committee, and it's something I've been doing for quite a few years, not since the Train the Trainer program or course was developed, but I was a part of it in the beginning. And it's a very enjoyable course. We meet at least as we get ready for a course, you know, every couple of weeks, and we have one coming up in Charlotte, North Carolina, towards the end of this month. And we have worked very closely with the trainers that actually conduct the Train the Trainer. And right now that's Christina DeWitt and Jason Bolton. We also work very closely with FDA, and we always have a representative at this course. Our goal is to offer it at least once per year, and we work very hard to rotate it around the country. Usually lately, last couple of years since the end of COVID, as far as in-person meetings go, we are able to keep up with that now. And our goal is to ensure future lead instructors are very well prepared to train adult persons and to meet all the requirements of the course through AFTO, and then make sure that these students, when they set up their courses, meet all the requirements that are set in the protocol. And we also work very closely with the lead in the editorial committee to make sure all these new students are ready to go and they know where to find the materials they need to set up their courses, and they're comfortable with the idea. Our goal is not to teach them HACCP. They should be well informed based on taking segment 1 and segment 2 or a 3-day course, and should be understand HACCP, but our goal is to make sure they know how to teach it. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Doris. All right. So I'm going to jump on to the policy committee. I will add that if anybody has questions throughout, feel free to put them in the Q&A and chat, and we'll try and get to them either towards the end or as we go. The policy committee currently does not have a chair. There is a vacant chair position right now, which potentially will be filling next week at our next executive committee meeting. But ultimately, this policy committee is set to oversee the review of products created, as well as the protocol, course audit, and community engagement work groups, right? And the real responsibility is making sure that they are coordinating the efforts of those various work groups that oversee that, right? And making sure that there's cohesion between changes that are happening to the protocols and the auditing process that the community is aware of, right? So the community is communicating a lot of what's happening in terms of changes in policy and protocol to those, and meeting as a policy committee helps to make sure that we're all aware of what's going on. So making sure the community engagement work group is aware of what changes are coming down the line. And so we'll jump on and we'll start to explore some of our work groups more closely. Our first one is going to be our editorial work group. Our chair for the editorial work group is Whitney Moore. So Whitney, the screen is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I know my name says Whitney Moore, but it's actually Johnson. I couldn't get it to change on the intro page. I don't know. Anyhow, good morning or afternoon, based on where you are. So our editorial work group, as Michael said, formerly the Blue Book work group, works to update the Blue Book or the training curriculum for the seafood HACCP courses. So currently, our main goal is to take any updates from FDA that they make, and if, just to give a little background, they update one chapter at a time. So when those updates do happen, our job is to comb through the Blue Book and the training curriculum and evaluate what changes need to be made in there so that it aligns with the updates that FDA has made to the hazards guide. And we did take a bit of a hiatus, kind of waiting, knowing what the secret information, I guess, that we have from FDA about when new updates are going to come out. So we waited a little bit, and now our newest update is with the editing folks who do the actual formal editing of the book. So yeah, we're looking forward to more updates from FDA so that we can do it all again.
All right, thank you, Whitney. All right, moving on to our next work group. Our next work group would be our models work group. And that is chaired by Doris as well. So I'll pass it back to you, Doris.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you, Michael. The models work group goal or purpose is to review and update the HACCP models that we use in our courses as changes occur with FDA, and also as we find any inconsistencies within the models as they're being used in the courses. And the Train the Trainer is one of the courses that we use pretty heavily. And the group is made up of a couple of people from the executive committee. The rest are interested people in helping. We have members from industry, FDA, and others that have taught Train the Trainer. So back in 2020, most of the models went through a major revision, and right now we're trying to go through all of them and make any changes that need to be made. A second goal or purpose of the group is to come up with a policy for introducing new models. And one of the best ways to do that is to get it to the models work group and allow us time to take a look. And I'm very happy to announce that we will very shortly be posting a new model for lobster processing. And that's pretty much it in a shell.
Great, thank you, Doris. All right, our next work group is going to be our presentations work group. Our chair for presentations work group is Razia Farzad, University of Florida Sea Grant. I don't believe Razia is on today, but Razia, if you are there, shout out. Otherwise, I will just jump in and give a quick intro. All right, I don't think Razia is with us. So the presentations work group is ultimately charged with maintaining and updating the segment 2 as well as basic training slide decks as necessary. So largely depends on changes to our blue book. So when there is a change to the training curriculum, there is efforts to go forward and update and ensure that the training slides meet and incorporate those changes. They're meeting at least annually or more frequently. It really is based on the need. So depending on what updates are coming down the line. And I know their next big effort is to work towards monetization of our standardized slide deck, especially with photos, illustrations, and things to make them more visually appealing. I know that's on the table for an update coming from our presentations work group. Again, that's Razia Farzad, who's going to be leading us through that one. The next work group is our translations work group. That's also chaired by Razia Farzad with University of Florida Sea Grant. And the purpose of this group is to increase access to training materials by ensuring a broader audience can access them via translation. Largely, as you hopefully know, we have the guide as well as the hazard guide, as well as the training curriculum and resources available in both English and Spanish. I don't know that there's talk at the moment of expanding beyond that, but they are actively engaged and continuing to update the Spanish language resources over time as necessary. And again, the activities or responsibilities of that work group and its members are going to be coordinating the translation of the training materials as they're updated. And creating that network of seafood HACCP trainers who can assist with and work towards the reviewing and editing of those Spanish language resources that are available to our trainers. All right, our next is segment 1 update work group. All right, I'm chair of that one, so I guess I'm still talking. Segment 1 update work group really is working towards maintaining the online course. For the most part, the online course gets updated as needed, specifically when we have updates to that blue book, we go through and revise the online course to make sure that any of the changes in the curriculum itself are reflected effectively in our online training. Our last kind of roundabout work group effort was really the development of our training videos. So if you haven't been in the online course in a while or missed our previous updates, or webinars, or emails, we did develop a series of 9 training videos to enhance the experience of users in that online course that go into the various aspects of developing a HACCP plan and conducting a hazard analysis. At the moment, we've got at least annual calls just to touch base and check in, and then we amp up meeting times and frequency as needed based on updates that are coming down the line. We're also looking at least during those annual meetings, to assess course evaluations and brainstorm new ideas and updates that can help modernize the course and make it more accessible and acceptable for our users. All right, our next work group is going to be our aquaculture training work group. So we're transitioning into the work groups that are focused on new course development and maintenance. So I will pass the screen now to Lisa, who is the chair for our aquaculture training work group.
Great, thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here. So for the aquaculture training work group, those of you that are familiar with all the activities of the Alliance know that several years ago, the Alliance was working on developing a HACCP for aquaculture products, a training supplement. And when that was completed and we tried to deliver the course, we realized it was very aggressive with the time frame that we had allotted as far as teaching goes. So we've stepped back and are relooking at the course to really focus on what will be needed for a seafood processor to understand how to build a effective HACCP plan for products from raising aquaculture. In the meantime, since the last work on this project had completed, FDA has updated the two applicable chapters in the guide, Chapter 9, which deals with the environmental contaminants, and Chapter 11 that deals with aquaculture drugs. So this revamped training will reflect the changes that are in the hazards guide. And really the goal is to help explain in more detail the control strategies that are in the guide. So the group has started on this renewed focus on the aquaculture training work group, training curriculum. We have about 8-9 folks on that working group, and we look forward to completing it before the end of 2024. Thank you, Mike.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. All right, next work group we're moving on to is another new training that the Alliance is working on, and that's our importer training. Chair of that work group is going to be Steve with FDA. Steve, screen is yours.
Thanks, Mike. This new training is really targeted towards importers that are not also processors. A lot of the big processors are also importers. So we wanted to focus the training on people that are really just importing product. So it's not going to be a very long course. It'll be probably a half a day or so. And the focus of it is for the special import requirements for seafood in the regulation 21 CFR 123.12. So we've started work on this, hoping to have something done here by the end of the summer at the latest, hopefully, and get this out. And there's about 6 different people on the work group, including Lisa and Whitney. So that's the update on the importer training work group.
Great. Thanks, Steve. All right, next is another, well, not necessarily a new course, but an update to our existing sanitation control procedures course, and that's our sanitation training work group. Unfortunately, no one from that group that is chaired by Joe Corby with AFTO could be here, but they did send a training video, which we'll watch.
Hello, everyone. My name is Randy Young, and I am a training officer at AFTO, and I'll be giving today's update for the sanitation training work group. So our work group currently consists of 11 members. If you don't see your name on here, please contact Daphne at AFTO. She'll get you added right away. And if you do see your name, but you haven't heard from us, do not worry. There's a reason for that. And we'll be reaching out to the full work group in, I'd say, like the next month or two. And so the reason you haven't heard from us is because we're currently doing all of our work as a sub work group. And we thought, in order to achieve our main goal, which is to update the SCP course, right, with current content and more interactive exercises, we have to start with the core of the training, which is the SCP manual. So we're currently working through the manual. We have about 1 chapter to go, chapter 8, and then we'll have something ready to share with the rest of the group. But this sub-work group currently that's working on the manual consists of Joe Corby, who's our senior administrator, or excuse me, senior advisor at AFTO, Deb DeVlieger, she's a retired FDA national food expert, and Whitney Johnson, national training specialist at NOAA's Office of International Affairs, Trade and Commerce. Once again, we're close to sharing a first draft of the revised manual, and at that point, we'll need the full work group for their feedback and to help us start putting together those various interactive training exercises. So thank you for your time. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, Randy. I will jump on to our next is our protocol work group. Our protocol work group is chaired by Claudia with Seafood Products Association. So Claudia, your screen is yours.
All right. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you're at. Yeah, the protocol work group is also a new work group under the policy committee. And basically, we're here to support our policy committee by reviewing and developing any new protocols that may have to be revised within the Seafood HACCP Alliance. And so we're responsible for updating those protocols that we're working on, such as like the application protocol or protocols for like who's qualified to attend to train the training. So we have a number of different protocols that we have to just streamline and make sure that they're consistent with each other. And then as new needs for protocols come up, then we'd be developing those and then share them back up to the policy committee. The other thing that we have a responsibility, duty to do is that as we've changed the Seafood HACCP Alliance course application process, if there's a question that comes up, our work group will now be responsible for helping to review any issues that might come up with those applications. Mike, I think that's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. All right. Next one up is our course audit work group. Course audit work group is chaired by Jason with University of Maine. Jason, the screen is yours.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. So the course audit group, work group is not necessarily new by any means. The work started actually numerous years ago, but Whitney Johnson and her group actually started that, made some fantastic recommendations and put together some basic protocols. And so that group will start meeting after the executive committee meeting coming up next week. And so we'll start talking about how we want to actually execute these things, what it potentially will cost, and if there's a budget associated with that. But there are some fantastic recommendations, so I really appreciate the work that was done by Whitney and the previous committee. And so that is all.
Thanks, Jason. All right, and our last work group is going to be our community engagement work group. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the chair of our community engagement work group, and this work group is newly developed, and this is really with the goal of better engaging our seafood community, right? So making sure that the seafood community is aware with what's going on within the executive committee, new trainings, resources, opportunities, updates to the curriculum, updates to the slides. Those things are all communicated across the network to that community, again, of trainers, as well as those with a vested interest in seafood safety and the Alliance materials and trainings. This group is meeting at least quarterly. And the first kind of thing we've been doing in terms of engaging our community is developing a series of webinars. This is the first of 3 webinars that we plan to host this year. This first one was really just to introduce you to the changes, the restructuring of the Alliance, the various groups, and put a face to the various members of our executive committee so that you could get a better sense of what's going on and who to talk to when you have questions or comments about the Alliance materials or need additional resources and insights. So we will continue to develop resources and share information on resources through our community engagement work group at the moment, largely through our webinar series, exploring other opportunities to enhance engagement with our community. The next webinar you can expect is going to be in May. I want to say 15th, but you'll get an email about that and an update so you can register to participate. And that one's going to focus on Vibrio, especially the challenges with communicating Vibrio when it is, not necessarily a food safety issue, but it is an issue for swimmers and bathers, which we've seen quite a lot across the US with a lot of concerns and fears of eating and consuming shellfish when there's Vibrio outbreaks that are completely unrelated to consumption of shellfish. So if you're interested in the topic of Vibrio, we do have some experts coming to join us to talk a little bit about that topic in our May engagement webinar. And then we're planning one for the fall that's going to focus on resources that are available beyond the training curriculum for seafood trainers to utilize as a resource and to share with their students. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and I can help get them answered. All right, so again, quick overview, Seafood HACCP Director of the Executive Committee. That position announcement will be coming out soon. The Executive Committee members serve as chairs of our committee groups, which then house various participants from the work groups, right? The chairs of the work groups. There's a materials work groups, course development work groups, and then those under our policy committee. This is the new structure of that alliance. If you have any questions specific to any of those, I think I see some coming in through the Q&A and chat. So let's take a look at before we jump on there. Let's see. I know I saw one question related to possibility of exploring an inland states committee. I did ask for some clarity on that because I'm not sure what exactly you mean by an inland states committee and what that would focus on. I see comments on smoked fish, reshipping, shell stock, outreach and education. I don't, if there was a question related to that, please do add that.
Maybe inland states is like Great Lakes, where instead of coastal,
Okay,
where the seafood products are a little bit different.
gotcha. All right, so maybe that's a topic we can explore at our executive committee meeting, discuss, see if there's something that's specific and relevant that would need to have a specific committee addressing it. I can't think of off the top of my head what would be so specific to the Great Lakes fisheries and seafood industry that would not be answered by ours. But if you have a sense of what that is, please go ahead and share that in the chat and or in the Q&A. Hello all. Since our webinar launched, we have had an executive committee meeting and made a little bit of a change to the timeline that was presented earlier on the webinar. So I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on where we're at with the timeline and what you can expect as an instructor of our segment 2 trainings. So on June 1st, 2024, our course costs will increase to $175. This is going to accommodate a transition to a new course platform, still within the Canvas license, but working with our partners at Cornell. This includes a certificate fee of $60. At this point, the notice of course completion will be issued in lieu of the course completion email that you're used to seeing as proof of segment 1 completion. 6 months after that launch, right, will be December 1st, 2024. That is when we will issue the last course completion email from seafoodhassup@cornell.edu. And after that, only notice of segment 1 completions will be issued through the new course platform, and all participants will be enrolled in that new course platform. However, you can continue to collect and accept those segment 1 course completion emails up until September 1, 2025, at which point they should all be 9 months or older and no longer valid. Remember, you need to have participants complete your trainings within 9 months of completing their segment 1 course. And after that September 1st date, because course completion emails will no longer be accepted, things should get a little bit easier, a little less hectic, because at that point, after we'll no longer be collecting fees from trainers for courses and participants to issue certificates. Those will all be collected by us when they enroll in the segment 1 course. So to help clarify a little further, let's look at what I'm talking about when I say this notice of segment 1 completion versus our course completion email. So starting June 1st, 2024, this is what participants will receive, confirming they've completed the online segment 1 course, right? So this is what you should be looking for, as well as that course completion email. Both can be accepted, again, as long as it's within 9 months of your course. Anyone who turns in this notice of segment 1 completion, we have already collected a certificate fee from them, and you will not be responsible for collecting or paying that fee to AFTO when they go to issue those certificates. However, if you have any participants in your training who are giving you this course completion email as confirmation of completing segment 1, which you can still receive and accept up until September 1st, 2025, as long as they're within 9 months of that segment 2 training, you will be responsible for collecting a $50 certificate fee for any participants to have their certificates issued. As I said, after September 1st, 2025, we should no longer be issuing these, and these should all be more than 9 months old. Therefore, you will not be collecting course completion emails anymore, and it's only that notice of segment 1 completion, and all participants should have had their certificate fees paid in advance. So ultimately, in summary, the main things you as an instructor want to keep an eye out for are June 1st, 2024. You'll start to see 2 different means of confirming completion of a segment 1 course. Course completion emails, what we do now, and a new notice of course completion. If you're doing a segment 2 and you collect any course completion emails, you are responsible for paying the $50 certificate fees to have that certificate issued. Any participants who provide the notice of segment 1 completion, we have already collected that fee from them, and we will be paying that to AFTO directly The instructors are not responsible for collecting or paying for anybody with that notice of course completion. September 1, 2025 is when all participants should be providing a notice of segment 1 completion. All participants will have prepaid for that certificate to be issued when they registered for segment 1. And after that date, instructors teaching segment 2 trainings will no longer have to collect or pay AFTO to have certificates issued. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, contact me. I'm happy to ask and assist as needed. Thank you. All right, so I'm sure that one prompted some questions. Any questions, please, Q&A or chat box. All right, nothing important. And then, yep, Daphne has put her contact information there. So AFTO's contact information related to HACCP. So if you have seafood HACCP questions, haccp@afto.org. I have my contact information on the screen now. So if you want and have any questions for me, if it's more of an AFTO question, I'm happy to forward you over to Daphne and the AFTO team to get that answered. All right. Anything our executive committee chairs want to add? Any questions from our executive committee? All right, well, if there are no questions, we're gonna end our webinar a little bit early. I thank everybody for participating today. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to AFTO at haccp@afto.org or to myself. My email is mc2544@cornell.edu, which is shown on the screen right now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.